on stage Ismail and Carsten to take us through the first part of Streamlining PLM with Enterprise Product Development. Over to you, Ismail.
Yash, thank you very much for setting the context. Like Yash already said, in this webinar today, we want to talk about SAP Enterprise Product Development in the context of digital thread initiatives. My name is Ismail, and together with my colleague, Carsten Dietze-Selent, we are very excited to kick it off today. And we have prepared a few things for you today. Before we dive into the content itself, as a preparation for this webinar, I have asked ChatGPT to create a meme of the challenge in PLM and the digital thread. See what happened. If we are deeply honest to ourselves, this picture couldn't be more accurate because customers across industries, I would say, are trapped in the current way of working. And it is super difficult to break out of the system and to standardize. But standardization is the key to capture the value at stake. And this is basically what we want to show now in the next 10 to 15 minutes together with Carsten. And therefore, we have prepared three topics today. Number one, we want to peel the onion a little bit, right? We want to talk about exactly this challenge, right? What is explained here by ChatGPT. Then, as a second step, we want to show how SAP intends to address these challenges. So it's about the why SAP. And then we will basically outline the framework of what SAP Enterprise Product Development is in the context of digital thread initiatives. And along this presentation, I have prepared 3 questions for Carsten, and then we will also have a nice conversation. So like I said, right, customers across industries are trapped. Why are they trapped? Because if you look at the last decade, our customers, but also many other leading customers around the PLM industry, right, developed many point-to-point integrations. R&D system connected with marketing system, point integration. Development integrated with manufacturing, with service, right? Many cases point-to-point integration. And do you know what the number one tool we observe is how product data is exchanged across these line of businesses, right? Especially when you look across the enterprise. It is Excel. It is mind-blowing to see how often Excel is used to send data around. And whenever you export something from the system, at this moment, the data is already outdated. So what we observe as a key challenge in the industry is that it is very hard to control who basically has access to the product data because there are different systems, different file formats, different data schemas. And as the implication, right, more and more customers complain about long time to market when they introduce new products or when they change existing products, what they have already in the market. And maintaining these point-to-point integrations between the different systems, guess what? It's expensive because every time your line of business wants to consume a new innovation, right, and they want to change a process, guess what? You again need to change the respective integrations, and ultimately you waste your valuable resources in IT, but also in the line of business. So there's a clear need for change in the industry because, again, like I said earlier, right, to just translate that and rephrase, we see a lot of operational silos in the entire supply chain. And these operational silos have an impact on value creation because every time you send data around to a different department, to a different line of business. And if you don't use the same system, right, then value is lost. Because you have multiple systems, right, you have these point-to-point integrations. And this is exactly where the core idea of a digital thread comes into the picture, right? Because with the digital thread, right, we can leverage our data foundation to establish basically a deep integration of product data and enable that all line of businesses in the value chain leverage the same product and asset data we have in the system. Of course, all of them, they have different needs and requirements, but the idea is basically to really establish that single source of truth across these line of. And we know that is basically challenging. And therefore, basically, I have my first question for Carsten, because usually Carsten is then basically responsible from an engineering perspective, make sure our systems integrate with each other. So Carsten, first question to you. When we look at this digital thread, right, in your experience, what are the most common challenges organizations face when they try basically to connect and integrate data across the line of businesses?
I think the slide which you had two slides before showed it very well. There are different systems involved, many different stakeholders, and there are many problems to solve to really achieve an end-to-end digital thread. And you will not achieve this in one initiative, as this is highly unlikely. So if you start with assessing what is an end-to-end picture, but what are my most burning problems, and where to really start, I think this is the first important step. The second step is digital thread by nature goes across organizations, goes across teams, involves integration to systems. Don't forget IT. So be sure you are, from an organizational perspective, aligned on the problem which you want to tackle. From this perspective, it doesn't really start which problem you choose to solve first. I think I'm confident we can give you some ideas in this journey, also with support through our partners and customers. Maybe one more challenge is, once you are successful, often the question comes up, what's now different? So don't forget visualization, analytics to show the success. So those are, from my perspective, the most important challenges, and then start to tackle the next problem. Don't try to do everything at once.
Next month, I think we have the Hannover Messe in Germany, in Hannover, right? Everybody will again talk about Industry 4.0. So how do you see the role of PLM evolving in the context of Industry 4.0? And what do you see basically as a requirement for connected and collaborative business processes out there in the context of Industry 4.0 again?
So when we recap what Industry 4.0 is about, it's about the digital transformation of manufacturing. And it involves topics like connectivity, topics like IoT, and topics like usage of AI and so on on the shop floor, in the manufacturing process. But of course, manufacturing needs the product data. So the faster and the more seamless you can transport a change from your design systems through your also approvals, internal and external business partners, down to manufacturing, the more efficient the end-to-end process will be. Or the faster you can react to market requirements and bring those requirements, be clear on them and bring them into the product, the more efficient will the entire process be, or the more successful you will be as a company. And the better you can connect with your suppliers, with your manufacturing partners on your product data, the more efficient you will be. And so from my perspective, Industry 4.0 and in manufacturing and the corresponding measures around digital thread and PLM are two sides of the coin, but in order to be successful, they belong together. So I think looking into digital transformation of manufacturing or Industry 4.0 without looking into how can PLM augment and support this process will only, let's say, lift half of the potential which is possible. This is my perspective.
So what you could pretty much say in other words, right? In order to capitalize on the value of Industry 4.0 in manufacturing, you need to treat the product development side of the coin, right, highly integrated with the manufacturing function. We don't want to stop there, right? Because we see the need to also integrate SAP PLM with other LOB functions. So you can say is what we want to do, and that's basically our strategic ambition, to leverage our PLM portfolio to establish a digital thread across the design to operate, but also the design to consume value chain. Because why do we want to do that? And I think, Carsten, you already touched upon that. Ultimately, the integration of PLM with manufacturing, with ERP, and also probably other supply chain solutions enable manufacturers to deliver the right product at the right time and at the right price. So ultimately, this is SAP's key value proposition for product lifecycle management and Industry 4.0. Through this integration we have explained, you will be able to deliver individualized, high quality, compliant, and sustainable products. You will be able to shorten the time to market because all the data you need in order to innovate will be integrated. So you don't need to look for data. You have it at your fingertips. And if something in your supply chain changes because a supplier goes out of business, right, or whatever, you can respond to that change as quickly as possible because we have a tight integration into SAP's business network. And ultimately, as you innovate, delivering the innovations to the market at the right price is also important, right? So you need to be able to optimize for margin and have a value-based pricing. That is exactly our also ambition with SAP Enterprise Product Development. We want to develop and be the foundation of the digital thread, what we just explained earlier. So this means with SAP Enterprise Product Development, we will cater to the needs of early product development, detailed development, and also the integration and other supply chain functions. right? So that we can basically start at the early stage in the life cycle where you have product improvement ideas, to create detailed requirement models. From these requirement models, you can drive a model-based systems engineering approach where you can derive functional and logical structures. From there, derive your product structure. And this is also one topic, what Gerhard Himmelsbach will talk about in a few more minutes. We have decided to also invest together with our partner DSC into a direct CAD integration into the new product structure, right? That is going to be one of the major innovations we're working on. And then basically continue a life cycle where you can add product specifications to the product structure, embedded test management capabilities to verify and validate the requirements you defined in the earlier life cycle, and then basically really make sure that you're able to create reference structures, right? And Michel is going to talk about that as well, where you can hand over the engineering view, right, to the manufacturing, but also to other line of businesses. So handing over product structures, but making sure that everyone looks into the most accurate and up-to-date information, right, is going to be crucial. And then basically you continue in the life cycle where you can leverage digital twins, also 2D and 3D visualizations and all the downstream processes. And this is where Lars will show us on how basically visualizations can be used, and also in the context of leveraging performance insights, right, from downstream processes, right? So what you can say is we create this continuity of data flow from left in the value chain to the right, but we will also always bring data back into the early product development context in order to improve the decision-making and early engineering based on the enterprise data we have in the system. That's for the discrete industries. For our customers in process industries, same story. Our key goal with APD is to be the foundation of a digital thread for process industries. So this means that we will also leverage the product innovation management to collect product improvement ideas. We have our requirements modeling capability. With the new specification management, you will be able to manage specifications, right? Also with your supplier net. And what is also really, really exciting is that we have a few weeks back kicked off the development of the new recipe formulation capability in EPD, which is currently also planned for 2024. So we hear more about this in one of the next webinars, right? But this is definitely also one of the very exciting developments we have in our product. Then here, basically, it continues. The data flows into all the downstream functions so that we ultimately can integrate with manufacturing, but don't stop there, right? Because once the product hits the market, we want basically have all the data points like the voice of customer are also going back into the early product definition phase and use the insights from your customers to again build better products, right? And that's something what we are developing for the process industries, right? So very, very interesting. So Carsten, my last question goes to you. So as we basically also told in the first answer of the question, right? So you have so many different things what you could do when you want to drive Industry 4.0 and digital transformation at PLM. What steps do you recommend for customers who are just about to getting started, right? Because now you basically we see more and more customers going live, right, with more and more EPD capabilities. But what is the one thing you would recommend for companies in the context of digital thread initiatives?
Maybe some advices. It's a little bit similar to question one. It's good to think big, but start with concrete pain points which you want to solve. And when you're clear about the pain points, then there are multiple. Then it really doesn't matter which problem you solve first related to this pain point. This can be then a better integration coming from ideas to requirements management to feed this into your process, or involving of stakeholders through a collaborative process, or a smooth change management process, or leveraging design data in combination with business data. All those topics, and those are just examples, provide a lot of value, solve specific pain points. The other important topic is avoid mistakes. So involve the different stakeholders. Don't forget about IT, because you will have to integrate with different systems. It's not only about cloud and adoption of cloud systems. Very often you touch processes with suppliers, with third parties outside of your company. So don't forget to provide them the necessary documentation. What's different for them, take them into the project, because they are equally vital for the success. In the end, consider how you can show success. Think about topics like you drive the process with a workflow, so you can measure the success. So which KPIs have improved? Think about visualization, which was not there before, to visualize the process or to visualize basically the data, which was not possible before. So if you can answer those questions, then it's also much easier to have management on board. And I think then it's also much easier to start with the next topic. Yeah, to solve the next pain point. This is basically what we have seen in discussions and in projects with a variety of customers now. What are common problems? Maybe overlooking certain systems which are involved in the process, or having to onboard stakeholders, certain stakeholders a little bit later, and or maybe having a too broad scope right in the beginning when everything was new. So if you avoid those mistakes, then I think there's a huge potential to do things right and to get the benefits.
Thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Carsten, for telling us about how SAP's integrated digital thread is overcoming today's product development and manufacturing challenges. It was really nice and exciting to hear the different strategic investments and areas that you basically mentioned as part of the end-to-end PLM story and how we are enabling the digital thread for our manufacturers and product developers out there. With that, we move into the first section as laid out. We have this define, develop, deliver, and manage products as a story. First part of which comes as define, where we try to collect ideas, prioritize needs, and define the requirements based on these voice of customers and market insights, over which we have our partner, Cenit, presenting. Our presenters, Bastian and Lisa, are representing Cenit to share with us how the new Requirement Valuation Cockpit by Cenit can help us shorten time to code for the CTO plus and ETO processes. Over to you, Bastian and Lisa.
Thank you for that great introduction. Yeah, my name is Bastian Schurr from Cenit, a partner company of SAP. And together with my colleague Lisa and Atakan, we want to present you today how SAP EPD Requirements Management and the Requirements Valuation Cockpit by Cenit can help companies to shorten the time to quote in request for quotation processes. But first, let's come to the disclaimer. And we already had a disclaimer so in the front, so I go to the next slide, I think so. And let me now start with a short story. Your company develops complex and highly individualized products. You receive a request for a customer to quote for a machine your customer needs to manufacture their products. But what is the challenge? Well, obviously, the time to evaluate the requirements and to deliver the final quote. Because therefore, you need to invoke a lot of colleagues of different departments to evaluate requirements in their domain. And someone needs to orchestrate that process and get back all the results and bring them together. That means a lot of effort for your company. But that's not all. What if it comes to an order of the customer? Wouldn't it be helpful to use the quote as a basis for the next processes? Yes. And therefore, your evaluation needs to be as precise as possible, and early decisions should be documented. Means the quote needs to have a high quality. Let's see how the Requirements Valuation Cockpit by Cenit can help to shorten the time to quote. Let's have a look at a typical RFQ process. In a typical RFQ process, a customer sends a quote to your account manager, and the account manager hands over the requirements documents to your project manager. And the project manager now is starting with processing that requirements. And you see the yellow line. The yellow line is definitely the most things are happening there. And this means orchestrating a big process. Because he has to invoke a lot of colleagues of departments to do that evaluation in their domain. And in the end, such a process can take several months. Let's see how RVC by Cenit can help in that case. For the RVC by Cenit helps in that case and helps the project manager with additional capabilities to orchestrate that complete process. It also brings additional capabilities for the subject matter experts to do their evaluation on the requirements. But what in detail? Let's see the next slide. The Requirements Valuation Cockpit of Cenit contains a few components which helps you to manage that process. First, the creator. That component reduces the effort to set up a new project. And to set up the project, always the same. The decomposer component automates in the end the classification of the requirements. Means it finds the right department, it finds the right priority of the requirements, and it finds the right function, if it's a functional, or the right type of the requirement, if it's a functional requirement or another one. The collaboration handler saves a lot of time when it comes to a collaboration with external partners. So it creates in the background for you collaborations where you can share your requirements with your supplier or with your customer. The Explorer, the fourth component, is an outlook in the future. It helps you to connect your requirements with similar requirements and existing solutions in the SAP backend. The cockpit is the central component of the RVC, and the cockpit let you always keep an eye on the deadline by showing the degree of completion and fulfillment of all the requirements in each project. With that, let's start with the demo. Therefore, I want to hand over to my colleague Lisa. She is explaining the first part. Please, Lisa.
Thank you. I just overtake the screen. Basti and I work in a company that produces painting machines, and our customer, the Happy Electrical Scooter Ltd, that develops e-scooters, want us to quote for a highly individualized painting machine. And of course, me as a project manager, I want to quote as quickly as possible. But therefore, I need the help from so many experts in the departments, just like Basti. And also Basti sometimes needs to discuss certain points with externals, just like our supplier. And our supplier will be Atakan today. Let's switch to the system that we can see how that could work. Here in the cockpit, I have already prepared the project. We can see here directly at a glance that there's still a lot to do because we have the zero completion and zero fulfillment. So let's get started that we can meet our agreed deadline. I have already prepared the customer requirements so far so that we have all the customer requirements in one database here in the Requirements Valuation Cockpit so that we can work with them. And because I don't want to work through them manually, I can use the decomposer. The decomposer is a functionality that analyzes the requirements one by one and fills out all the properties, just like the category, the department, and also the priority automatically based on a keyword search that analyzes the name and also the description of the requirement based on a keyword search. And this keyword search applies for a rule set that you can choose whenever you create a new project. Thanks to this, I immediately know which department is responsible for which requirement. In our example here, it's the R&D electrical department, and that's super great because that's the department of my colleague Basti. So I'm pretty sure he will get through the evaluation fast. All I have to do now is to share exactly those requirements with the department and wait until I have a feedback from the department. So, Basti, please evaluate the requirements.
And now back to me. So as Lisa has explained, I'm playing the role of a subject matter expert from the department R&D electrical. So in the meantime, where Lisa has shared the requirements with me for my department, I have received an email in my Outlook, which directly leads me to the Requirements Valuation Cockpit. So please, Lisa, next slide. There I see directly the project from Lisa, and I see on the completion, I see that there are 4 requirements open for me, and I have 2 weeks left to do the evaluation for those requirements. So then, please, Lisa, open that. So here are my 4 requirements I have to evaluate. I start directly with the first requirement for the evaluation. Selecting this, the next screen opens. On the left-hand side, I can read the description to get more details about that requirement. The the requirement tells me my customer wants to have an easy operation via a touchscreen. So yes, that's something what our product has in standard. So let's do a quick evaluation. I click on evaluation and then I select standard, as this is a standard functionality, so very easy. So I click on evaluate and my job is done for that. So I do the same things for the next requirement. And for the next requirement, I shorten that one. I have my customer wants to have that painting programs are stored and can be reused as templates for the next processes. So for my machine, this is a modification because I don't have such a storage. So I select modification at my rating for my rating, and I also put in a comment. I fill out the risk. It's low, so I don't have to fill a risk comment. And I put in my estimated costs and my estimated effort. And again, click on evaluate. And my job is done in that case. So the next requirement I have is monitoring and logging. And monitoring and logging is something what we do not manufacture by our own or what we do not produce. Therefore, we have a very smart and a very nice supplier, which is played by Atakan. So I take that requirement and I directly share it with my suppliers through the button evaluate through supplier. In the background, I select my supplier, of course, yeah. And in the background, a collaboration is created in the My Collaborations app. My requirement is shared in that collaboration. So Lisa, click on the next slide. So you directly see on that slide that the collaboration is created and it contains a collaboration for this requirement is created. And please click on the next slide. We now show that we can see for this collaboration, there is exactly one requirement inside. And now I hand over to Atakan. He now has received an email, or he should has received an email, and he can proceed as a subject matter expert of the supplier. Please, Atakan.
Thank you, Bastian. So yes, hello, my name is Atakan. In this demo, I'm working as an engineer or a subject matter expert in the supplier company Electrical Power. As Basti just mentioned, I just received a mail from the SAP EPD system that one of our customers has created a collaboration. So upon clicking the link in the mail, I can immediately jump into the collaboration that the customer has created. And here under the reference objects section, I can see a short list of the requirements, or in this case, the requirements that I should be evaluating. Upon clicking on that requirement in the My Collaborations app, we are immediately jumping into Cenit RVC's supplier evaluation app. And here in the first screen, I can see a more detailed list of the requirements that I should be evaluating, in this case only one. And upon clicking on this requirement, I can see the further details of the requirement. Now, looking at the requirement, I see that this is about monitoring and logging of the paint pressure and the paint amount. I immediately know that this is a standard feature for us, so I will be evaluating it as such. Just as Basti did, upon clicking the evaluate button, I'm receiving the exact same screen. And my evaluation, since it's standard, is a simple one. I will be just selecting the standard, clicking on evaluate, and my job is done. Now, Bastian should be receiving a notification about my evaluation. And
thank you, Atakan. Yes, and now I have received in the background an email, and I directly validate Atakan's evaluation. And I directly hand it over to Lisa. And Lisa now will proceed as a project engineer.
Me as a project manager, of course, I monitor the project from time to time, and I always keep the overview of the current progress of the project. And the cockpit offers me a dashboard that helps me not only to track the progress, but also to keep an eye on the deadline. And again, here in the requirements view, the status indicates which requirements are already ready for my validation. And it also, on the other hand, shows me which requirements were sent to an external party, just like our supplier. And that we have to wait a little bit because this evaluation is still ongoing. Well, in the meantime, I would say we can already look into the validation progress and how it looks like. Obviously, my subject matter expert, my colleague, doesn't have any concerns about this requirement, about fulfilling this requirements, as you can see here with the processing and the waiting. So I rely on his feedback and we could just validate this requirement. And now this requirement is already finished. And let's imagine some time has passed by and we would be already finished with the whole evaluation. So we could just hand over all the requirements validated to our account manager. And that would mean that we would be ready for growth in time. And that would be the end of the demo already. So I would say let's hand over to the Q&A. Do you have any questions?
Having more or in participating in our development process of that new app, please feel free to contact us.